I think, like I said, I'm 24 now. I'm so... It's all over the floor. Hey guys, what's up? It's Belle. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello. And if you've come back, thank you so much. Today, you guys, we're doing a cute video. I did something similar during Bookmas. We sort of talked about like the new releases and we did some Christmas baking. But today, you guys, I thought we could do some Valentine's inspired baking because it's a lot of fun and talk about your bookish, unpopular opinions and hot takes. So I asked you guys over on my Instagram and on my TikTok to just send me like your biggest like bookish hot takes, bookish unpopular opinions. And I got so many responses. I got so many, like I think it was like over 400 that I had to like comb through, maybe 500. But I ended up finding the ones that were the most interesting to me. And I put them in a little mug here. So I thought whilst I do some baking today, I'll just like pull them out. We'll have a chat. Maybe I'll yell, maybe I'll scream, maybe I'll agree. Who knows? But I'm excited. Let's get comfy, let's get cozy, and let's get right on into the video. You know what this is giving me? And you're watching Disney Channel. Alrighty guys, so before we sort of get into the opinions, I thought I'd show you guys or like tell you guys what I'm planning on making today. What I'm going to be making is essentially like just some shortbread cookies. What are these called? Like sugar cookies that are going to have these like pink, red, and purple M&Ms. I mean, they're called Smarties. I could not find the Valentine's like M&Ms in Australia, but that's okay. So we have these. And then the other thing is just going to be these like raspberry and white chocolate muffins. And I thought I could do like something like this and just have like some pink frosting with some cute little things on the top. I'm gonna start with the cookies because I wanna make the dough, put it in the fridge to like set a little bit and then make the muffins. And then they should align to bake at the same time, so.
Nom 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 nom.
Ah, Danny, but Isaac. They're the good ones, dog. That's why I separated them by color.
Sure.
First, I need to be putting all of my flours and dry ingredients. Also, guys, do we love the apron that I made when I was in 8th or 9th grade? It's actually slay. Like, it's giving housewife. Anyways, whilst I do this, I'm gonna pick our first little unpopular opinion. Okay, the first one is dog earring pages isn't that bad. I did get a couple of these ones, I think, but I think dog earring is so interesting because I think a lot of people find it super offensive, like if you dog ear your pages. And I think I used to be like that. Like I used to definitely be like, if I saw somebody dog earring instead of using a bookmark, I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is going on? But now, like, I sort of don't really care. I think like the look of a worn book is low-key appealing. So I'm like, I personally probably won't dog ear my pages, but I do not run and flee and cower and, you know, make someone feel bad if they do dog ear. You know, like it is not the end of the world if you dog ear your pages, you know what I mean? Next one. I forgot I put this one in here. The next one is, I like blonde MMCs. I don't get the hate. So this is actually such a good one because when I saw this, I giggled so hard because I feel like there's definitely like a stigma around blonde male main characters. And I really want to say that this is mainly in like fantasy romantasy series where I feel like a lot of blonde male main characters either turn out to be the villain, they are the villain, or I don't know, they're just not people's favorites. So I think it's that thing of like no one really trusts a blonde male main character. I'm like on that hill till the day I die that I think like I don't like blonde male main characters. I think like whether I'm in a romantasy or even just a general romance book, if like a blonde male main character is introduced, like it's just my personal preference and I'm just sort of like, like really, like we couldn't have him dark and tall. It's because I'm Italian and I want that, you know what I mean? Like that's my type, I want that. However, there are two blonde male main characters that I will like disregard the rule for because I love them so much. And I love these two blonde male main characters. The first one is Aaron Warner. I think that's kind of obvious that I will disregard any and all rules, negativity about this man. I love him so much. And then the second one is Peter Millark. Peter Millark, okay? Peter Millark, that is my man, okay? And if I've missed any other blonde male main character, I'll let you know. But like, that is my man. Like I will die on that hill that he is a blonde male main character that I will love until the end of my days. So I'm gonna set that aside for a sec. So the next one is, I think e-readers are useless. Don't come for me. I can use my phone, lol. I got so many like this about like, I don't think I need a Kindle. Do I really need a Kindle? Like what's the difference? Like I so much prefer holding a paperback, blah, 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 blah. So here's what I think about this. I want to say about 2 years ago, I was like the firmest believer in like I can't stand e-readers. I will never use a Kindle. Why do I need a Kindle? Like holding a paperback is literally so much like better. It's superior, blah, 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 blah. Then I started to see people get them and I was like, okay. Like, you know, as an AO3 veteran, I also used to absolutely love reading on my phone, and I still read fan fiction. If you guys saw the amount of like, I'm gonna like add a video or something of my Safari on my phone. The amount of bookmarks I have of AO3 fan fiction is not funny. So the only reading I will do on my phone is that. However, could not read a book on my phone if you paid me. Like, and I don't know what it is, but I just could never do it. And then one day my stepdad like was going through his old devices and stuff, and he was like, oh, I've got this like old Kindle, like, do you want it? And I was like, oh, like, I don't have to buy it. Like, maybe I should just try it out. Loved it. Started reading it, loved it. Started to realize that I literally was reading so much faster on the Kindle, like it wasn't a joke. Then I got a new Kindle this year, the green one, as you guys know. And that is my favorite thing in the world. I truly feel like there is nothing like reading on a Kindle now. And I used to be the hater. I used to say holding a paperback is just so much better. Guys, Kindle is so good because you can literally take it everywhere. It's amazing. You do feel like you're holding some sort of book because it's quite large. It's not like a phone where you're like scrolling on it, but you read so much faster. It's super transportable, like I said. And it's just like such a cheaper alternative too, because I know you can rent books from the library and put them on your Kindle. You can also obviously get like Kindle Unlimited. It's just like a much more affordable option. I know they're about $100 or so to buy, but I'm a Kindle lover. I will love Kindles till the day that I die. I'm gonna mix this together really quick and then I'll be back. All right, so we've got the little butter mixture in here. I'm gonna try and find my little scraper. Anyways, let's pull our next one out. Our next one says, more books should be set in college rather than high school. I totally agree with this. I am just like, either it's the side of like social media that I'm on or whatever. I feel like there are a lot of books that are recommended that are like set in high school, and I feel like the only books that are set in like college are sort of like sports romances. But you know, I do still really like college romances. I feel like they don't always have to be sport related, but I feel like, yeah, I feel like a lot of them are set in high school. This could be a mess or it could be fine. The next one is, funnily enough, I can't read romances that are set in high school. I agree. I think, like I said, I'm 24 now. I'm so it's all over the floor. Oh my God. And the dishwasher, guys, I messed up. I don't think this is very smart. I think I should have used a wooden spoon. Anyways, I also do not like reading books that are set in high school. I feel like I'm just so past that now. I feel like hello? How you doing? I feel like I'm the same. Like if I know now that a book is like set in high school, I will not read it because I'm like bored. Like that's not my age group anymore. And I feel like when I read the books as well, like the characters are super immature and I'm like screaming at them. Like as an adult being like, stop acting like an idiot. Like I don't know. I feel like the only exception to that is like something like Heartstopper. I feel like they're just more mature. I am gonna get cookie dough everywhere. This one says the ACOTAR series is overrated. And let me just put this out. Let me put this in the sink, okay? All right, buckle up, ladies and gents. Here's my thoughts on this. One, I'm offended, okay? But two, I can see the vision, okay? So I am the firmest believer that the first book in that series, like A Court of Thorns and Roses, is absolute garbage. Like I read that book and I was like, what are these people talking about? Like what are they yapping on about, right? And I told you guys, I was like, this is terrible. Like I gave it 3.5 stars. I think like the last 30% was interesting because we had like the tournament and like the trials and stuff. But otherwise I was like, I am so bored. How is this like the best series in the world that you guys keep talking about? And then you were screaming and you're like, Belle, please just read the next one. Please read the next one. It's so much better. It's like written by a completely different author. And for some reason I was like, okay, I'll read the next one. If I really don't like it after then, like I'm not reading the rest of the series. And thank God I read A Court of Mist and Fury because that is one of my favorite books of all time. Okay, the series like from A Court of Mist and Fury onwards, it feels like it's written by a completely different author. And I don't think it's overrated because I'll never forget the feeling I got when I read that like book, that series, not even just that book, like the series for the first time. It's so magical. Like the found family of it all, the plot, the story, I don't know, I was gagged. I was very lucky with ACOTAR that I didn't have anything spoiled for me because with Throne of Glass, the reason that I don't want to read that is because I just know so much about that series already because people spoil it all the time. But ACOTAR, I was very lucky that I didn't get that spoiled for me. So I personally loved it. I don't care. I respect your opinion, but I don't have to agree with it. I do not have to agree with it, besties. All right, we'll pull the next one before I get the Smarties out. These are gonna end up wet. Someone said, I hate covers with real people on it. The Bridgerton books are the exception. I totally agree. I think there's a few different like iterations of this. So I think in general, as a society, we all hate like real people on the covers, especially when it's like shirtless men. Like nobody wants that. Nobody wants that, especially when you're going out in public and reading. You don't want to take that book with you. So nobody likes real people on the covers, and that's why there are cartoon people on the covers. But the type of like book covers I hate the most, sorry, I dislike the most, we don't hate anything, okay, are the like movie or TV show tie-in covers. They are so ugly. Like I will not buy that. I'm so sorry. Like, okay, maybe I'm like the biggest liar because I obviously like that comment said, like that person has said, the Bridgerton books are the exception because they're actually pretty, like the TV show tie-in covers that they do. They make them look somewhat decent. Whereas like any other, like if I think of something like Daisy Jones and the Six, that is the ugliest. It Ends With Us. Any of the dystopian ones, oh my God, they're so ugly. Like why? I get you're trying to make money and you're trying to profit off the movie coming out, but it's literally so ugly and nobody wants to see that. I don't even think that's an unpopular opinion. I think that's a very popular opinion. So, all right, I'm gonna put this in the fridge and then we'll start on the muffins whilst it like sort of sets a little bit. If y'all could see the white flour all over the floor and all over me. Okay, so now we're gonna start on the muffins and I'm gonna use this. Let me pull one of these. Somebody's unpopular opinion was Josh Chen's supremacy. And I respectfully have to just say, I'm so sorry, bestie. But no, I actually did see like another one in here somewhere about somebody saying that they feel as though Josh gets a lot of hate, even though like Alex and Christian, I'm talking about the Twisted series if you're unfamiliar. Josh gets a lot of hate, even though some of the things that Christian and Alex did are like very questionable as well. With Josh, I think the problem that I sort of had with him was that he was actually a really solid and funny character in every other book but his own. And then he did something so out of character in his own book. So I think it was a mixture of like Josh, I just feel like the Josh we knew would never do that and behave like that. And it was just really nasty. I feel like for me and a lot of people, it's a book that we read when we first like got into reading. And I feel like our tolerance for certain questionable things was like very low. So when Josh like did this thing that a lot of people are upset with him for, I think we all remember it very vividly. So I think like, I just don't think, when people tell me that he's their like favorite twisted man, I'm going, what's happened? What went wrong? Do we need to open the schools? Do we need a reset? I don't know. Oh my God, these smell so good. All right, next. I will skip a spicy scene if I think it's at an inappropriate time in the book and it doesn't feel right. I 100% agree with this. I feel like as a lover of spice and a lover of spicy romance books, I love good spice, right? But I feel like in certain books, it has to be like relevant. Like, of course, if you go into like a spicy book about, what do I need to do here right now? If you go into a romance book that is about, I don't know, let's say like a guy who owns, you know, an adult club and his assistant, like, of course it's going to be spicy and the spice is like warranted in that case. But I feel like if it's like at an inappropriate time and the author is just like throwing in the spice for like, I don't know, like shock factor or something like that, then I will be like actually skim reading it, because I just don't like, I feel like if there's no emotional connection and we're just doing it for the shock factor or at a random time, like I'm not there. And I feel like I'll find myself just skim reading like literally everything. Someone said third person is not a deal breaker. I don't understand why it is for some people. I used to be like this. I think like when I was younger and I was reading like books like Cassandra Clare and like things like that, I like never actually realized like third person was like annoying or whatever. And then I feel like third person just started to get like a really bad stigma, especially online, and people being like, I will not read third person, like it's awful, like I have to read in first person. And for a while there, I like did start to notice the difference between third and first person. I just feel like I was much more aware of it than I used to be. Like I feel like I would just read a book, I didn't really care what point of view it was in, or like, you know, third person, first person, whatever. As soon as it started to be a problem, then yes, I started to notice it more. And there was a time where I was like only reading first person because third person low-key annoyed me. But now, like I actually like don't care. Like if a book's in third person, it doesn't matter. The story is still going to be the same. If you think about fan fiction, right? Like I was just saying, I read a lot of fan fiction. Like fan fiction is most likely always in third person, and I never notice it and I actually enjoy it. I don't like first person in fan fiction, but I love it in like a romance book. So it's a bit like give and take, but it's not a deal breaker as some people like think it is. Alrighty, the next one is friends to lovers is better than enemies to lovers in romances. And I completely agree. This is like a hill that I will die on, okay? So let me break it down, okay? So this person has specifically said in romances that they think that friends to lovers is better than enemies to lovers. I think in a romance book, there is no such thing as enemies to lovers. I think there is rivals to lovers and like dislike to lovers or whatever you want to say. But I truly don't think there's anything as like true enemies to lovers, okay? In a romance book, I feel like friends to lovers, especially childhood friends to lovers, is so elite. Like there is nothing like it. When it's done well, friends to lovers is okay, but my favorite is like when we open the book and it's pre-established friends or childhood friends to lovers, nothing hits like that. Like it's the slow burn of like, especially if like the guy, so good, guys. Of course, I love enemies to lovers, but only in fantasy romantasy books because I feel like enemies to lovers is actually warranted in those books there. The stakes are not high enough for you to be enemies with your work colleague. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think it's right. Rivals, yes, but you are not enemies with your work colleague. You are enemies with, you know, the king's son who has wrongfully done your family, you know, for the past 1,000 years or whatever it is. I don't care. That to me makes more sense. But friends to lovers, it's just so sweet. And it's like the confession, it will just get me every time. I will literally, like I said, I will die on this hill. One more. This is a really good one, and I got a few iterations of this. Someone has said having multiple copies of multiple books isn't good and negatively feeds consumerism. So I am like of the firmest belief that if you like have a book in your collection and you read it and you enjoy that book, you don't need more than one copy of that, okay? So like, I know a lot of people will go and buy like a hardback and a paperback of a new release, okay? And if it's just a book that you just like want, and or it's a book that you've read and it's okay and you just buy, you know, the hardback just to have it, just to say that you have it, I think that is wrong. That's just my opinion, okay? But if you read a book and it becomes your favorite book in the entire world, I think having multiple copies of something that you really love is fine. And that's like me. Like there are only, I'll tell you right now, there are only 2 books out of, I've read a lot of books, you guys, okay? Out of all of the books that I have read, there are only 2 books, okay, 3 books, let's say that. There are only 3 books on my shelf that I have multiple editions of because I love them so much that I want to buy every edition because it's my favorite thing. So the first one is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And yes, I have 6 copies of the book, but they are all different. Some are special editions, some of them are different editions with, you know, rewrites and things like that. It is because I collect those books. Same with Romancing Mr. Bridgerton from Bridgerton. I think I have 3 or 4 copies of that book now. And the reason I have them is because some of the copies I have collected are no longer in print, and that makes them collector's items, okay? So like I said, I'm sort of like in that middle way there. There's another one in this list about special editions, which I'll get to, which I do want to talk about. Perfect. Okay. Special editions sometimes feel like a money grab, especially when there's 10 for 1 book. So this is what I did want to talk about, and I think what is negatively feeding consumerism. I'm just going to use an example of the ACOTAR series, okay? So with ACOTAR, I feel like there have been so many special editions of that book that not only does the idea of a special edition actually like lose its intrigue, and it's like the whole point of a special edition, I feel, is that it's something that they don't do very often, and it's called a special edition for a reason, okay? So like that's my sort of like thought process behind special editions, is it's something that is not done often. You normally buy, you know, you buy the hardback or the general paperback, whatever. And then a special edition is something that is like very rare. And I feel like lately, because, you know, it's great that there are a lot of these new like book box subscription companies and all this stuff that are doing like limited edition book boxes. And the problem that I'm now feeling with these limited editions is there's like 10 different companies that are all doing a special edition of that book. But 2, the thing that really annoys me about book boxes and special edition books is now, if you're not part of like the 10 people who have access and are part of their, you know, monthly subscription box, you cannot just buy a limited edition book, a copy of a book that you really love, if you're not already on that list. And that's where I think it's wrong, because I am of the like firmest belief, especially as an Australian, because we never get access to any special editions unless they're from Amazon, right? I think it's wrong that subscription places and websites do these special editions and they only allow pre-orders to be taken, or like orders to be given to people who are already part of their database. And I just think it's so unfair. Like there's not enough places that are actually doing special edition books that you can just buy if you want to buy it, that's where I think it's becoming a problem, where people care more about just like the money than like the actual. There have been so many, like the limited edition Chestnut Springs from Illumicrate. I was devastated because I couldn't get them because I'm not part of their monthly database, whatever it's called. Like, you know, any of those, the Bridgerton Illumicrates, like I'm so angry about those. I have tried 3 times to get those books and I'm not able to because I wasn't on their database. So I think that is where we need to like stop. Okay, so guys, these are supposed to go in for 20 minutes. So I'm gonna put these in and then I'm gonna get the cookies out. All right, now I'm gonna put my cookies on here and read a few more. The next one I have here, I pulled some out so that I don't have to pull them out as I got my hands full. I do not care about breaking spines. Now this is the one that I think I got the most. The breaking of the spines, I literally got so many. They don't care, they love breaking the spines, or that breaking spines is a crime. And I feel like that is just a hot topic of discussion. I feel like a lot of people have very strong opinions about it. Okay, so me personally, you will never, ever, ever catch me breaking a spine. It's just not something that I want my shelves to look pretty. Like if I spend money on a book, like I want them to look pretty. However, if I go to like a convention or whatever, and I get a secondhand book and the spine is cracked, I literally don't care. Like it will not deter me from getting that secondhand if it's the spine's cracked, because it just shows that it's like well loved. You know what I mean? Each to their own. A lot of people just think it's so offensive. And you know what I really don't like is when people like read a book, they'll like fully tuck the page behind the book and hold it like it's one-sided. I'm like, get a Kindle. Like if that's how you want to read, get a Kindle. Like I actually think it's offensive when people read books like that. Next I still rate and review my DNFs. Now that is a hot take and an unpopular opinion, because I personally feel like, look, each to their own, but I don't think that you should actually rate a book that you don't finish. Like if you want to keep it for yourself in your mind of like, that's where you think that book would have sat at, sure. I don't think, this is my opinion, I don't think that you should be posting a review like with a rating of a book that you didn't finish, because that's not fair. Because you don't know, say you DNF the book at like the 50% mark, you don't know if the rest of that book was really good because you didn't finish it, or if it got worse. Like I just feel like rating somebody's work that you actually didn't finish reading is not right, because you know that's going to show up on things like Goodreads and Fable and whatever, and it will lower their average rating because you are assuming that the book as a whole is worth that rating, and that's just not true. So I am the biggest believer in a DNF. I love DNFing. Of course, if a book is not for you, go right ahead, baby, DNF that book. But I will never rate my DNFs because you don't know what that book is. Like if it's a 1-star, sure, but you didn't finish that book and fully, wholly know that that book was 1 star. Next up we have, it's so hard to find a good college sports romance. They're all so repetitive. And I so agree with you. I know we were just talking about there not being like very many college romances out there, but the only college romances out there are sports romances, and they're always, most likely always ice hockey, and I am bored. I'm so over it now. I think I have just read so many now that I know where they're going. Like I feel like they're just getting super predictable. I feel like if we are going to continue the sports romances with college, like can we spread out? Like I've never been to an American college, I'm Australian, but do we only do football and hockey at American colleges? Like are there not other sports like baseball, soccer, I don't know, like female sports, like do we do volleyball, netball, basketball? Like what do we, like I feel like we need to spread it out because I'm getting bored, you know? All right, that's our first try. I actually might need a second try, to be honest. All right, before I start rolling, let's pull another one. This one says, I don't mind third act breakups, the pregnancy trope, and love triangles. So those I feel are probably the most like controversial tropes, I think, especially in romance books. So let me sort of break it down. The third act breakup I am also not a fan of. I personally feel like it can be done at the wrong time. However, if it's done really well, I really enjoy it, because I really do feel like if the third act breakup is not miscommunication, if it's actually like an actual problem that they're having and it's not miscommunication, I think it's warranted and it can be needed in certain books. When a third act breakup comes from miscommunication, I absolutely despise it, because I'm like, you guys are adults. So it's usually an adult romance. Why are we not having proper discussions? Like that's That's how I feel. So the pregnancy trope was another one that I had a few responses on. I absolutely love it. I think so far I have read books that do like the accidental pregnancy trope really well. I am not a fan of like it being thrown in the last 10% of the book. I think that's sort of wrong. But when it's like introduced as a plot device in like the beginning of the book, I absolutely love it. I think it's so sweet. I'm just a sucker for it. It's the same reason why I love like single parent, single dad so much. And then love triangles. This is probably my least favorite other than like the cheating trope. Sometimes I like it. The only love triangle, guys, that I have ever liked is the Gem, Will, Tessa situation from the Infernal Devices. That's actually a love triangle that like, even though I had my favorite, I actually like would not have minded like if she ended up with either man, because they were actually both such beautiful characters. When it's in like fantasy dystopians, I think it's super unnecessary because it's like, you know, our female main character's got enough going on. She really does not need to be like figuring out which boy likes her more. You know what I mean? Like, I just think it's really silly. Let me see what this next one is. Someone said, hot take, Quicksilver was overrated. I severely disagree. Like, I think that book was so good. I do think the first 200 pages are a little bit slow. I feel like if you haven't read like high fantasy before or like elaborate world building, it takes a little bit to get into the book. But once you're in, and that book is so beautiful. Like, I drove past this Japanese restaurant, whatever it was the other day, and it was called Osha, and the way I started crying because I now know what that means. You know what I mean? Like, that book was so amazing. I don't care what you say. Carrie and Swift is one of the best side characters I've ever read in my life. Literally argue with a wall. That's my deal. Okay. All right, while we do a bit of cleaning, we'll do a few more. This is such a good one. I saw this, I think, a couple of times as well. This one says, not every couple needs to have kids in the epilogue of romance novels. I totally agree. I am the biggest believer that not just romance books, but just like some books in general do not need epilogues. It does happen a lot in romances, especially like standalones, that we do get the flash forward and it's always like they're married and have kids. And I think like, yeah, that's great. But like sometimes I just don't think it's needed. Like, we don't need epilogues. I feel like some romance books as well, they end on like the most beautiful lines and then it will be like 10 years later. I'm like, no, we could have ended there. Like, we could have just been happy with them ending off as a couple, like wherever they are, especially if they're in like I said, college or whatever. And then we flash forward to them with kids. I'm like, no, like we don't need that. One of the best epilogues in a series ever is The Hunger Games, okay? And that one, I believe, needed to be there because that was actually like so, I'm not spoiling The Hunger Games, but the entire like point of The Hunger Games is Katniss is like, I will never be having kids because it's not in a world that is safe for kids to be around, right? Like the world that they're living in is like not safe for children. So she said, I'm not going to be having my own because I'm not going to be putting my kids through that. And the reason that we have an epilogue in something like The Hunger Games is because we have that full circle moment where like now in a world where it is safe for her to have kids. That's where I think a epilogue is warranted. But when I'm like, if we're in college or like junior year in college, whatever, and then you're telling me like 5 years from now they got kids, I'm like, no, that's just so unrealistic. I don't believe it. You know what I mean? But sometimes like epilogues without the kids are great. Like, I just want to see them like having fun in the club. You know what I mean? Like, don't tie them down this early. I'm like honestly the biggest believer of that. Next we have, this is a big one. It's okay not to DNF books. It sometimes feels like it's a trend. Not everyone does, and that's okay. Look, I can agree. I think like you don't have to DNF. It's completely up to you. If you feel like it's wrong in your heart to DNF a book, then sure, like continue on. But I always say, and I've said this a few times now, DNFing books is literally fine because say for instance, you're watching a TV show and it's like 10 seasons long, right? If you watch the first season and you're not enjoying it, are you going to sit and watch the rest of the show? No, like it's your time, right? And I feel like that's the same with a book. Books take a while to consume. And like, if you're going through a book that you're not enjoying, A, you're not going to give it a good rating. 2, you're probably going to fall into a reading slump. And 3, like you're going to go, man, I just wasted so much time. Like I wasted so much time on that book. Sorry, I had to get the muffins out. They are out. I didn't know if I was going to do like frosting, and we'll see. But they kind of look a bit plain, so I kind of want to do frosting. But anyways, what was I saying? Yes, DNFing books. That's my thoughts on it. If it's not for you, don't finish it. But also if it's not in you to DNF, then that's fine too. I don't think it's a trend. I don't know where that came from. But anyways. Next I have Hunting Adeline is better than Haunting Adeline, and I completely agree. So many people will read Haunting Adeline and think it's so bizarre and so uncomfortable and whatever, and not finish the duet. And even like, right, I read Haunting Adeline, I gave it 4 stars. I wasn't wasn't completely sold on the romance, but I really loved the like mystery element of the first book because there's a really intriguing mystery plot. However, the first book ends on a cliffhanger and I said, okay, I really want to know what happens in the second half of the duet. And thank God I did, because Hunting Adeline is one of the best books I've ever read. It's like, honestly, the character development in both of our main characters, like the things that they go through, it is like a gut-wrenching, heartbreaking book. It's so amazing, and I really fell for their relationship in that book. I mean, there's a reason why it's called the cat and mouse duet. You have to read both books, because I know so many people that read Haunting Adeline weren't the biggest fan of it and then didn't finish the duet, but you have to. It's like, that's why it's called a duet. It's not just a standalone. It's not a full-blown series. I feel like duets, you have to read both of them to make up your mind and your opinion on the series. Hunting Adeline is stunning. I'll never forget like one moment in this book that I wish I could like lose my memory to read again for the first time, because I felt so sick. Like I was shaking. I was reading it on my Kindle, and it's a lot. It's obviously a very heavy book. There's a lot of again. Oh, this is a thick one. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is actually such a good one. I totally forgot about this one. This one says, relatable and realistic female main characters tend to be very hated when that shouldn't be the case. I so agree with this. I feel like, I want to say like a lot of the times in fantasy and romantasy, I feel like female main characters who are like actually realistic, relatable, who have flaws are like the characters that I see the most hate on, which is really sad. And I feel like when I talk about, especially fantasy, right? If you have a fantasy series and like you're a little bit frustrated with the main character in the first couple of books, there's a reason, because that character is flawed. Actually, you know what's really interesting? Rebecca Yarros put this really interestingly. I saw her do like a panel when she was talking about Onyx Storm. There's no spoilers for Onyx Storm, but she made a really interesting point about, if I'm not going to say what happens, but there's a character in the first Fourth Wing book that does pass away, and I'm not going to say who that is, but there's a very loved character who dies at the end of Fourth Wing. Someone asked a question about that in this panel that I was watching, and they said, is there a chance for this character to return? Because, you know, a lot of the times, especially in like fantasy romantasy, like some characters who die come back, right? And she said something really interesting, and she said this character can't come back because they're already perfect. And that's what I found really interesting, because if you have a character who is perfect, is not annoying, does not have any faults, does not have any problems or things to work through, there's no story to tell. And there's a reason that those are the characters that most likely get killed off, because they don't have a story, they don't have growth. And I think that's so interesting, because I think when you have, especially female main character that people get annoyed at, it's because she's learning, she's growing, there's things that need to happen. Because if she was perfect and knew, you know, what was going on, if her head was in the right like space, we'd only need one book. There would not be 5, 8, 10 books if this female main character didn't have somewhere to go and didn't have somewhere to grow. And I see it a lot, and I'm going to say it again, a lot about DM Bellator from the Kindred's Curse saga. I absolutely think she's one of my favorite female main characters of all time, because she doesn't know what she's doing. She's a little bit frustrating and annoying because she's learning. She's like just been put in this world where she has no idea where she's going, and people don't like her, and it's because she's flawed. And like, I feel like we need to be a bit more forgiving when we read. Like, you're not perfect, and neither are the people you're going to read about. That's what makes them relatable. Oh, this is a good one. Somebody has said Unravel Me was better than Ignite Me, and I completely agree. For those who aren't catching on, Ignite Me and Unravel Me are part of the Shatter Me series. Okay, so it's books 2 and 3. I will tell you why Unravel Me was better than Ignite Me. Okay, so what I love, and especially in these, like I said, these dystopian fantasy worlds, right? When you have a slow burn that's sort of happening, the book that has the slow burn just before a couple gets together is the best. And the tension and the quotes and everything that was happening in Unravel Me was it was otherworldly. I remember the ending of that book. I was just like, this is one of the best series. I love it so much. But I knew that Ignite Me, which is the third one, I knew that was everyone's favorite. So I was super excited. I was super geared up, because I was like, man, if that's how Unravel Me was that I hear nobody talking about, how good is Ignite Me going to be? And I still liked Ignite Me, but it was nowhere near as good as Unravel Me, because I think, again, the actual tension and the build up sometimes can be so much more rewarding than just seeing the couple together. Next we have, we got another one. Twisted Love was better than Twisted Games. I'm sorry, I can't. It does say Twisted Love plot was better than Twisted Games. I think you're talking about two different things, babes. We've got Twisted Love was very much like there's a mystery plot, so I can understand where it might have been a more intriguing plot, a thought-provoking plot. Twisted Games is elite. It's the best book in that series. I will literally die on this hill. I feel like it doesn't fit in the series because it just feels like otherworldly. It feels like it should be a standalone of its own. I think that Twisted Games, just like the high stakes element to it, the plot, like the forbidden romance between a princess and her bodyguard, like it just doesn't compare to like a brother's best friend to me. And that's just me personally as a reader. Like I said, everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but anyways, okay. Paperbacks are better than hardbacks. I agree. Holding a hardback is really difficult when you read. I feel like it's like super heavy. It's inconvenient. I feel like paperbacks are a little bit more, again, transportable if you don't have a Kindle. Hardbacks are beautiful if you have a special edition and you want to display it, but I will never go out and buy a hardback of a book that I know I can get in paperback unless, like I said, it's like a special edition of a book that I truly love. Otherwise, I will not be buying a hardback before the paperback. All right, cookies are done, muffins are done. I thought we could decorate them together. I made like pink icing again. What I'm worried about is that this is going to be so runny, so I'm going to try and decorate these as quickly as possible. Anyway, the next one that I have is not all books need spice. And I completely agree with this, especially like in the last maybe 6 months, I've realized how true this opinion is and like this statement is. I'm scared. Literally pray for me. It could be really bad or it could be really good. I really don't know. Okay, don't hate this as much as I thought I was going to, but anyways. I am like literally the firmest believer that not all books need spice because I'll give you guys a few instances, right? I think young adult romantasy books are some of the best books out there and there is not a touch of spice, and literally just the tension and the build up and the slow burn of it alone is worth so much. And sometimes now, like when I read romantasy, sometimes there'll be a spicy scene and I'm like, it literally takes me, like throws me for a loop. Even like I was reading yesterday Book Lovers by Emily Henry and the book was just doing so good, just building up. Even that, I feel like that book was more like general fiction with the romance subplot. But when like low-key there was spice in that book, I was like, oh, like, did we need this? Like it wasn't even very like on page. Like it was very closed, like suggested type of spice. Guys, I've literally just run out of honesty. Like I said, I love a spicy good time as much as the next person, but like honestly, sometimes I just like prefer it not to. I kind of ate with this, guys. Like I don't hate them. You know when like you were in like middle school, you had to do like a bake thing and your mum had to make cupcakes and she really tried her best? That's how I feel about this. I mean, I don't hate them. I do not hate them. All right, you guys. I think the Valentine's baking is done. Alrighty, you guys, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for sticking through all the way to the end. If you did, I really, really appreciate it. I hope you guys had a little bit of fun with me today and you like the sort of look of the goodies. I think I'm definitely going to take this down to one of my girlfriends who's got 2 little kids. I'm sure that they will absolutely love them because if we leave them in the house, everyone's going to eat them and that's not very healthy. That's okay. Thank you guys as well for everybody who submitted a unpopular opinion over on my Instagram and on TikTok. And if yours made it into the video, yay if it was a good response, and I'm sorry if I disagreed. As always, you guys, if you aren't already, you're more than welcome to follow me on TikTok and on Instagram. I'll leave my handles on the screen and in the description box. And if you'd like to, you can like this video and subscribe to my channel and make sure you are hitting the notification bell. That way you're notified each time a brand new video goes up. Thank you guys so much for stopping by again. I really, really appreciate it. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a lovely day or a lovely night, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.